Good afternoon and welcome back to Save Time, Save Money Chat. I'm Michelle Stinson-Ross for offers.com. This week I am joined by food blogger Jordan Skaggs, and I'm going to give it to Jordan for a moment to let her tell you a little bit about who she is and what she does.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me today. A little bit about me. I'm married, and actually my husband and I are both originally from Oklahoma, but just a few weeks ago we moved to the Milwaukee, Wisconsin area for a new job that he got. So we're just getting settled here, and it's been a fun adventure so far. And as far as my food blog, I originally started it. I wanted a blog, but I didn't know what I could write about consistently. And then I also really wanted to make an effort to learn how to cook. I enjoyed it, but I just, didn't really know a lot about cooking. So I started a food blog as a way to kind of learn and document my adventure in learning to cook. And then, so I started just sharing recipes that I liked, and I really enjoyed it. So kind of over time, I just started creating my own recipes, and I borrowed my husband's camera and kind of got into the food photography a little bit. So that's kind of where it's grown, and yeah, so it's just something that I really enjoy, and I just really love cooking and also eating. So I'm really excited to talk about Thanksgiving dinner today.
Excellent. Well, Jordan just gave it away. We are talking about Thanksgiving, and rather than talk about the same thing that you see a lot of celebrity chefs, other food bloggers, food experts talking about on like the morning shows and that kind of things, because you guys are going to get to see a lot of content on how to cook a turkey, make cranberry sauce, the perfect pumpkin pie. You're going to get to see lots of content the closer Thanksgiving gets on stuff like that. What I really wanted to talk to Jordan about were the kitchen tools that make all of that possible. So that's specifically what we're going to be talking about in relationship to Thanksgiving, are all of the tools that will help you to make an absolutely fabulous Thanksgiving meal, whether you're just contributing one dish or whether you're hosting the whole shebang. So, my first question for Jordan is, we all know, in truth, Thanksgiving's actually a big family dinner party. What are some of your favorite tableware and decorative items to kind of set the mood at the table? Because that's an important part. I mean, yeah, the food is what we're all about, but that atmosphere that we have when we're seated at the table and spending time with one another is also important. So, Jordan?
Yeah. For me, I personally like just really simple decorations. I mean, it is a holiday, so you still want it to feel special. So, I like adding those little miniature pumpkins scattered throughout the table can be really pretty. And then also, some things you might have around the house. You might have like candle holders and some candles, or if not, you can get those really cheaply. And then just adding things like cranberries in the bottom can be really pretty, or acorns. Even something like pecans can kind of give a fall feel to your table. Or, if you want a centerpiece, you could use like just a cute wicker basket and get some gourds or something and put it in the center. So I like to keep it simple, but I also think that your decorations should reflect you and your house. So if you want something more elaborate, then definitely you should do that. And then if you want something a little more decorated, you could also get like a table runner, and if you got one that's maybe solid colored, you could use it multiple times throughout the year. So that way, you're not just buying something for one-time use. And then also, for my food photos, I'm always looking for placemats, so I can always find them on clearance. And then, if maybe you need 8 and there's 4 of one kind but 4 of another one that kind of go together, you could alternate around the table, and that could also be something that's really pretty too. And then as far as tableware, I'm actually I'm a person that I really love color, but through food photography, I've really learned that food always looks best in white dishes or white plates. So that's definitely my preference. It just makes the colors stand out a little bit more, and you can really see the full color of the food. But obviously, if you don't have white plates, that's totally fine too. I definitely think, you should use what you have. And then also, I just wanted to say, if you have cookware that can also double as a serving dish, that can be really helpful and kind of cut down on dishes. And so I have an example here. I just have this little dish, and it's oven safe and microwave safe, but then it's also, it looks pretty, so you can just go ahead and set the food on the table, and it's ready to go. So that's definitely something that if you have something like that, I would use that, and it helps cut down on the dishes. So
true enough. I know a lot of people are concerned particularly about cleanup and, okay, what do I do to, make this as efficient as possible and not spend a lot of time. I mean, I've already putting a lot of time into cooking it. I don't necessarily want to have to put a whole lot of time into cleaning it. But it was interesting in researching some other stuff for Thanksgiving. I ran across an article that was talking about how do you do Thanksgiving on a budget, and actually one of their recommendations was not to do the single-use disposable paper plates and whatever. Yes, it's easy cleanup, but number one, it's kind of cheesy. I mean, it doesn't really make your guests feel special to be eating their turkey and cranberries off of a paper plate. And truthfully, especially if you're going to get decorative paper plates and stuff, you usually wind up spending more than you would have on the soap suds to just wash the dishes at the end of the evening.
Yeah. Sorry, there's a siren.
You just never know what's going to happen in one of these chats. That's part of the fun of being live and together. So no worries. It's just that Jordan lives on a very busy street, and we're going to go with it. My second question for you, what kind of roasting pans, deep fryers, other tools do you feel like would help home cooks successfully prepare their turkey and avoid a dinner disaster? I know that's one thing, especially for somebody that's cooking a turkey for the first time, that seems to be the thing they fret the most. It's like, oh my gosh, I don't want to burn it or dry it out, or, there's so many things that can possibly go wrong with our turkey. What do you think are some of the tools that we need to have in order to not ruin our turkey?
Yeah, sure. So, you can have a roasting pan, and then, when you're picking out a roasting pan, if you don't already have one and you're shopping for one, you just want to make sure that your turkey will fit in the roasting pan. You don't want it to be touching the edges, just to fit snugly but not, super tight. And then also you want to make sure that the roasting pan will fit in your oven. So if you have a smaller oven, you just need to be aware of that. So that's, it seems kind of obvious, but at the same time it's just something to keep in mind. And then there are a couple of different types of roasting pans. There's I forget what stainless steel. I couldn't think of it. Stainless steel, and then there's also copper, and then there's another kind that's cast iron, and it's like enamel coated. And I actually have, that's what it looks like. It kind of looks ceramic, but actually I don't really recommend it because it's really heavy. And if you have this big roasting pan that's really heavy and then a heavy turkey in it, and it's been cooking in the oven all day, that can be really hazardous when you're trying to lift it. So I personally like stainless steel for cooking. And with the roasting pan, you can look for rounded edges, because then when you're using the drippings to make gravy, the whisk can get into the corners, whereas if it's squared off, you won't be able to get into those corners. So rounded edges are nice, and then you just want to make sure it has sturdy handles, because you'll be lifting a heavy turkey out of the oven. So just making sure it's, heavy duty. And roasting pans are nice because then throughout the year you could use them for like large servings of like lasagna or enchiladas or something. So that's just kind of, nice. And then for deep fryers, there's two different kinds. You can use a propane heated deep fryer, or there's also electric. And propane you always want to use outside, and also you want to make sure you're not on a flammable surface like a wooden deck or something, because that would be really hazardous. And then, if you plan on frying foods throughout the year, then you want to think about probably an electric one that you can use inside. So it just kind of depends on what you're going to do with it. And then if you want to fry the turkey and you have a really large group, I would definitely recommend doing 2 smaller turkeys instead of 1 large one, just because lifting it in and out of that hot oil would be really hazardous. So it's probably easier to just use 2 smaller turkeys to get, the amount of food that you need. And then just some other really handy tools that will help with the turkey is if you are using a roasting pan, you can get a roasting rack, and you just want to make sure, once again, that it fits into the roasting pan that you have. And that's nice. It just lifts the turkey up so air can circulate underneath, and also, you're still getting those drippings for gravy that you can use. And a lot of times the roasting rack will have handles, so you can easily lift it out without any problems. And then, if you don't have a roasting rack, some other things that you can use are just large chunks of veggies. You can just kind of roughly chop up some onions and carrots and put those underneath, and it still kind of holds the turkey up and, gives flavor to those drippings in the bottom for the gravy and even the turkey. So, that's something you can do. And then I've also seen where you can take a long strip of like heavy-duty aluminum foil. I have a small example that I got, and you just kind of roll it up, and then, you just kind of bend it around, and it just, then you just set the turkey on it, and it still keeps it out of the bottom to let some air through. And a funny story about this, I was making this yesterday, and my husband said it looks like you're preparing to fight aliens, so if you do that, you might get a hard time about it, but it was pretty funny. And then some other tools that you want to have to keep the turkey moist while it's cooking, you can use a baster, and that looks like this. So you can get underneath the turkey and soak up some of those juices during the cooking process, maybe like every 30 minutes or an hour or something, and you can coat the turkey with the juice, and that just helps to keep it moist. So that's something really handy that you can use. And then you definitely want to have a meat thermometer. That's really important. So you can make sure that the internal temperature of the turkey is where it needs to be at. And there are a couple of different types. Some of them you can leave in the turkey in the oven, but then some of them you can't. So just make sure to read the directions on those to know what you need to do. So yeah, that's a big one, is the meat thermometer. And then also, if you're not using an oven rack and you need to lift the turkey out, you can use a really sturdy wooden spoon and just insert it into the cavity of the turkey. And then you need something on the other side to support. You can just use like a wad of paper towels or maybe like a big fork just to support it as you lift it up. But if you do that, just be careful of the juices that are inside of the turkey, because those will be really hot, and so you might just want to let those drain for a second before you try to move the turkey, or just have your cutting board or serving tray close by so you're not getting juice everywhere. So that's just something to be mindful of. And then also just having a sharp knife for cutting the turkey. You can use a carving knife, or if you just have a really long chef's knife, that can work too. And you just want to make sure it's sharp, because if it's kind of dull, it'll just end up shredding the meat instead of actually slicing through it. So yeah, those are some helpful things that'll make your turkey a success.
I want to ask you a quick question about the meat thermometers in particular, because I've noticed every year about this time, yes, we see the nicer, metal thermometers that you put it in, you check it, you pull it back out because you don't want that staying in the oven. It'll get hot. You could wind up breaking it, melting it, all kinds of horrible things if that stayed in the oven. But I've also noticed that this time of year we see a lot of little plastic disposable kind of indicators that you can poke in the bird and just kind of leave it and it'll pop. And is that something worth messing with? Have you had any experience with those? And honestly, this is just part of my own curiosity, because I see them come out this time of year, and I'm like, are those really useful, or is just somebody making some extra money?
Yeah, I haven't actually used one of those myself, but I know what you're talking about, and I've seen those, and I got kind of interested myself, and so I'm not sure what the outside is made of, but I know you can leave it in the turkey in the oven. So I read how it works is that there's a substance in the bottom, and it's holding down just kind of like that pin and that little top, it's usually like red or something so you can see it really easily. And when it reaches a certain temperature, that material at the very bottom that's in the turkey, it melts and it releases the little red top. So it springs up. So that's how you know it's reached the right temperature. So you're not actually seeing like the temperature, but so yeah, that is something that you can use, and it's safe to leave in the turkey. But I've never used one, but yeah, they're definitely something to
It's
use.
a,
And
it is a good alternative if you don't have a meat thermometer and you're looking for a quick solution. A perfectly valid way to make sure that your turkey is getting done all the way through.
yeah,
Wonderful. All right, desserts.
yes, the
You
best
know we
part.
got to talk about the sweets.
Yes.
Desserts and side dishes, actually, both. They're important to completing the Thanksgiving feast. Obviously, yes, we want our turkey or our ham for those of us that are from the South. That we can go with a ham if we don't want the turkey.
Yeah.
Um, but the sides are what complete the meal. What small appliances do you reach for when you're baking, chopping, mixing, pureeing? I mean, what other things do we need to have on the countertops to make this job easier?
Okay, yeah. I would say I don't know if it's really considered a small appliance, but it's definitely something worth having is the slow cooker, or it's most frequently probably called crock pot, which is the same thing. And it's just so easy. You just can't beat it. I mean, you can put a side dish in there, or even something like bread pudding can cook in the crock pot. And you put your ingredients in, you set the temperature and a timer, and it can cook for a couple of hours while you finish cooking other things, or get ready whatever you need to do. And then a lot of times they'll have a warming feature. So once it's done cooking, if you're not ready to serve it yet, you can just turn it to warm, and it'll keep your food warm while you're still getting ready. So that's one of my favorite kitchen items. So I definitely recommend using that for Thanksgiving. It just kind of takes one side or dessert off your mind while you do other things. So that's definitely one of my favorite kitchen tools. And then also, if you have a big stand mixer like a KitchenAid, you can use that to mash potatoes, or if you want to make homemade bread or something, that can be really handy. Or just a simple like handheld electric mixer for mixing up like pumpkin pie filling. It's a lot quicker than stirring it by hand, and you could use that to blend up other things like sauces and stuff. So that's really handy to have. And if you have a food processor and a lot of veggies to prepare, that can help you prepare that a lot faster. And a lot of times they'll come with a blade that does slicing. So, if you just need to slice some veggies, you can use that insert, and it'll slice your veggies a lot faster than by hand. So that's something that really would be helpful. I actually don't have a food processor, so it's called a mandolin, and it looks like this. And there's just a blade right here, and this is just a gripper to protect your fingers. So, if I need thinly sliced potatoes or something, I can just run the potato over the blade, and it makes really thin slices. So it's just kind of a nifty little kitchen tool to have that makes slicing a lot easier. And then, if not, then a good old cutting board and knife works also. And another handy thing is a cheese grater. And, it has a couple of different sizes. I like to use just the standard shredding size, but you can use that to not only shred cheese, but if you're making pie crust, you can actually shred butter, and it just makes it, then you have a lot smaller pieces, so it makes it easier to incorporate into the flour than just chunks of butter. So that can be helpful. I've also shredded potatoes. I'm going to be using it later to shred up some sweet potatoes, so it's really handy. Or even if you need to shred up carrots or something, that can be really helpful. And then I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Yeah, those are just some of the things that I reach for when I have a lot of like prep work to do for something like a side or a dessert. So
Excellent. You know what? You're mentioning of the crock pot actually reminded me. For us, for Thanksgiving, it's always a very large extended family meal, and we do our Thanksgiving potluck style where, everybody contributes a side or a dessert or whatever. I can't tell you how many family Thanksgivings I've been at that everybody is showing up with their little crock pot ready to plug in and warm up whatever. I mean, they may have prepared the carrots, the green beans, the whatever in something else, but
Hmm.
they'll bring it to dinner in the crock pot so that we can keep all of that stuff nice and warm. And it's honestly, it in my mind it beats a chafing dish with the sterno because there's no fire hazard there.
Yeah, yeah,
You don't really have to worry about stuff scorching to the bottom of it like you might with the sterno and more of the catering style dishes.
yeah.
But I'm glad you brought that up because I mean it sent off light bulbs when you said that. I'm like, oh yeah.
Yeah. It's one of my favorite kitchen appliances.
And the nice thing is, thanks to the handles and the lid on it, it really is very portable. You don't have to worry about moving stuff from one dish to another to take it wherever you need to take it. You just
Mhm.
put the lid on it, unplug it, and off you go.
Yep.
Um, the best part of Thanksgiving, the leftovers.
Yeah.
How do you package up food for enjoying later? And I wanted kind of two different twists, if you don't mind, on this, because depending on how big an event you're doing, if it's just a small family gathering, like in your dining room, whatever, maybe just 8 to 10 people, most likely you're probably just going to pack it up and put it in your own refrigerator as the host. It's kind of one of those bonus gifts for, opening up your home to everybody else. Plus, you probably did all the cooking. But like I said, for a family like mine, we do it potluck style, and everybody's contributed something. They ought to get to take something home. So I kind of wanted your take on both of those options, whether this is something that is for the host and they're just putting it away in their own fridge, or for a larger meal where you're kind of distributing the leftovers so everybody gets a little bit of something.
Yeah, sure. So, first, as far as food safety, I just wanted to mention that, you really want to make sure that you put the food away within 2 hours. You really don't want it sitting out longer than 2 hours. So, that's just something to keep in mind and make sure that, it's not sitting out for, several hours. And then the other thing is the safest way to store the leftovers is in a shallow container, just something like this. It's about 2 inches thick. So, if it's just a small family gathering and you're just putting the leftovers in your fridge, if you have something like this, just shallow containers, I recommend using those. And, it's really tempting to leave stuff in the casserole dishes, but, if you have a bunch of casserole dishes with just, partial dishes left, that can take up a lot of space in your refrigerator too. So it's safer to package them, and then also it can just save space. And then, if you do want to be able to have people take food with them, you can get those little, I don't have an example, but those little aluminum pie plates, they're usually pretty shallow, so you can put food in those, or several of them, depending on how much food you have left and what people want to take. And then sometimes they'll have like a plastic lid to go on top, or you can just wrap them in foil and just make sure you label them. And so that's something people can take with them, and they don't have to worry about giving back to you. So it's just something disposable and still shallow, so when it goes into the fridge it can cool a lot quicker, and that just leaves less time for kind of bacteria to start to grow. So that's why it's important to have shallow. Is just it cools the food off quicker. And if you're not going to be eating the leftovers in the next 3 or 4 days, a lot of it you can freeze, so you might want to have some freezer safe bags or containers. So if you have a bunch of turkey left over, you can just put it in a freezer bag and put it in the freezer, and that'll keep for several months. So that way you're not wasting any food. You can, if you can't get to it in the next couple of days, just freeze it and it'll be there for you in a couple of months if you want to use it.
Excellent tip. I did not know that about the shallow dishes. Thank
Yeah.
you. I learned something today.
Yeah.
All right, last question. And this one is more cooking than tool related, but what are some of the common mistakes that home cooks can avoid and take some stress out of preparing that Thanksgiving meal?
Yeah. When I was thinking about this question, I just think I really think that not taking time to plan in advance is probably the biggest mistake because, and there's a lot of reasons for that. One is when you take the time ahead of time to pick out your recipes, and then, you can go through and see what you have and make your grocery list, and then you can, see what's in your pantry. So you're not buying more cans of pumpkin when you already have some in your pantry. So that can, help save you money so you're not buying duplicate things. And then you know exactly what you need when you go to the store, so you're not trying to guess how much you need or maybe you need this or not. So, you're not buying extra things. And so, there's that aspect. But then also, when you taken the time to plan in advance, read through your recipes and see what each needs as far as prep, or if things can be made ahead of time. So you can chop veggies ahead of time, pies can be made the day before, some side dishes can be made the day before. So when you've taken the time to think through some of that, then you've already gotten some of the heavy lifting out of the way. And then for the day of Thanksgiving, I would recommend reading through the recipes that you are going to have to make that day and just seeing what needs to be on the stovetop, what needs to be in the oven, at what temperature, for how long. So you can kind of take time to coordinate those things, because I think when mistakes start to happen, at least in my experience, when I get in a rush, that's when I forget the salt or the baking powder, or I get distracted and the sauce burns on the stove. So planning is just a way to set you up for success from the beginning. So that way on the day of, you can take your time and you're not feeling rushed. So you can, make sure you read through your recipe and you're not skipping in ingredients or steps. So that way everything turns out, and, it just kind of, planning just kind of sets you up for success. And then I would say also another thing too, and it's kind of like you said, you guys do a potluck, and I think that's a great idea too, because I wouldn't be afraid, don't be afraid to ask for help. People can, bring some food, or you can ask them to help you cook, or help you clean up, whatever you need. And so that's just, something that you can do to set yourself up for success from the beginning. So those are definitely two things that I would do.
Well, I have one extra tip for
Okay.
you. I think you'll like this one. Like I said, we're planning a very large gathering with extended family, and I'm talking cousins, in-laws, nieces, nephews. We're probably talking 30 people or more for my extended family. And guess what? I have a lot of people that have various dietary issues, everything from diabetic to food allergies to nut allergies. Some people are, they're in the midst of a diet where they need to avoid carbs or whatever. And one of the things that, as we're planning our list of, do you want to bring a side? Do you want to bring a dessert? Do you want to bring, what are you bringing? I actually am planning and including in our group instructions, please include a card that lists the ingredients on what you brought. Don't worry about whether or not what you're making will suit everybody. Just have the courtesy to include a little card that we can set by your dish that shows everything that's in it, and then let those people that have allergies or other dietary needs, let them be responsible to pick and choose what they can and cannot eat. They can't make that decision if they don't know what's in it.
Yeah.
You already prepared it. You already have the recipe card right there handy. All you need to do is list. You don't have to list proportions of what's in it. Just list the ingredients in it. So if there's nuts in something, and people need to be aware of that, or there's sugar in things that the diabetics need. I mean, because there's sugar in things that you wouldn't normally think of, because usually your sweet potatoes have sugar in those. A lot of cranberry sauces have sugar in those, and although they're technically side dishes and not desserts, the diabetics need to be aware that, oh, there's sugar in that.
Yeah, that's a great tip. Yeah. I'm gonna remember that because that's, yeah, it's just an easy way for people to be able to see, like, oh, okay, yes, I can eat this, or no, I can't, and
And
that's a
that way, the pressure is kind of off everybody that's actually cooking, because I know there are tons of us that we have favorite recipes. There are things that our particular family really, really love and want to be able to prepare and have, but not everybody else can eat that. And you don't really want to have to stress about, oh my gosh, will Aunt Sally be able to eat this?
yeah,
Don't worry about it. All you need to do is inform Aunt Sally about what's in it and let her make the decision as to whether or not she wants to risk it.
yeah, yeah, that's a great idea.
All right, that takes us to the end of our Q&A. I want to thank Jordan so much for being so gracious to spend a few minutes on a Saturday with us to share a few tips. I mean, I seriously, I learned a couple of things that I wasn't aware of, so thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I had a lot of fun.
Excellent. I will give you one last opportunity. If there's one like super secret little sneaky tip that you haven't shared that you'd like to, this is your chance.
I guess one last thing I just want to say is just an encouragement for when you are cooking, just to relax and, just remember that it's about time with your family, enjoying good food. So just take a deep breath and relax. And, if a dish doesn't turn out right, it's not the end of the world. You can just take a deep breath and laugh about it. So that would be my biggest encouragement, is just to, not get so worried about making everything perfect and just enjoying it and enjoying the day, and it's kind of what Thanksgiving is about. So that'd be my biggest encouragement for cooking, is just to relax and enjoy it.
Excellent. Jordan Skaggs, thank you very much. Everybody, I would love for you to take a moment and visit Jordan's blog. It is arecipeornot.wordpress.com. Go check out all of the fantastic things that Jordan's been cooking up lately. And I wish you all a very wonderful weekend. And let me be the first to wish you a happy Thanksgiving.